Welcome. I'm gonna mute myself on the old Twitch machine. Episode 8, Stuff and Things. I can't believe I have talked for about 7 hours, thusly doing this show. So tonight, by request, I am going to be talking about how I met my wife. It's a very crazy story. There's no way I should have met her. Which is funny because she has been friends. She was friends with my cousin for a long time. And I hung out with my cousin quite a bit. But I never actually met the one person that I would eventually meet at a wedding. So, to set this up, I went to film school in Florida when I was, what year was it? When I went there. 2012 is when I graduated. So I graduated in 2012 from Full Sail University down in Florida, which is a film school. I got a BS in film, which is appropriate. And so I was down there not thinking about anything. I knew my cousin was going to be getting married. And I was like, well, I'm not going to make it back in time for the wedding, so I didn't even think about the wedding or anything, because I was like, okay, I'm going to spend about a month coming back across the country. Just take my time, go hang out with people that I know all throughout this United States of America. And, just kind of take my time, get there. But, alrighty. Thank you for the lurk. I appreciate it. And so I was getting close to finishing up school, and the way that it works there is at the graduation ceremony, the valedictorian does not speak. It's a vote by the class as a whole on who they wanted to speak. And I was like, yeah, this one particular person is going to be the speaker. Absolutely. He was definitely the person who we all would be like, yep, that's the guy. So I found out that my brother and sister-in-law were doing a fundraiser to raise money to adopt a baby from Ethiopia. And I realized that if I skipped my graduation ceremony and I started across the country, I could still have a couple days in the Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee area, because I lived there, and there's a lot of people that I really, really adore in that area. So I was like, okay, so if I do this and kind of book it across the country, instead of taking a month, take about a week, I should be able to get back in time to go to this fundraiser. They were doing music and all sorts of stuff, and so I was like, all right, let's make this happen. So it was determined that I would go to Tennessee, and my sister would join me at that point and drive the rest of the way back to the Northwest. So I was in Florida, and I was driving from Florida to Oregon, which is almost the furthest that you can get in the continental United States without going up to Alaska. But I was, it's a long drive. I've done it a couple times. And so I started my journey. I think it was right after the last class. I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going. Here we go. Let's go. And, not thinking much of it, got to Utah. And as we're driving through Utah, I texted that was the day of the graduation. And I texted the guy that I knew was going to be the speaker. And he was a good buddy of mine. And I asked him, I was like, so who got valedictorian? And he goes, oh, you did. I was like, all right, cool. So I'm driving through Utah, found out I'm valedictorian of the class, which is pretty cool. About 100 people in the class. So we make it back to Oregon at about 3 o'clock in the morning, the day of the fundraiser. And I was able to go to the fundraiser, and it was great. It was awesome. My brother and sister-in-law ended up adopting a baby girl from what in the world? My brain just completely blanked. It wasn't Ethiopia. It was anyhow. Why can't I think of the Sudan is coming into my brain, but it wasn't the Sudan. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Basically. So I went there. They did end up adopting, but from another African country, baby girl, and she's awesome. She's a wonderful human being, just like the rest of them. And I realized, hey, I can actually go to my cousin's wedding because I'm in town now. So I planned on it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the wedding. And the wedding was a couple hours away from where we lived. And day of the wedding comes, and we're there. We get there. We go into the church, and as we're standing there talking to other cousins and family members and stuff like that, I see this girl. And I'm like, okay. My first thought immediately was, she's married or she has a boyfriend. There's no way this girl is single. And then my cousins and aunts and sisters and everybody was like, hey, you should go talk to her. You should go dance with her. You should. And I'm like, all right. What are we talking about? Jordan, we are talking about how I met my wife. You can see it in the tag there. And we're at the part where I went to a wedding of my cousins that I was not supposed to be at because I was supposed to be across the country. But I was there. And so was she. The one. So now we'll take an aside, and I'll tell you how my cousin met her husband. My cousin plays Words with Friends, and she would always play with random people, and if anybody ever tried to talk to her, she would be like, nope, peace, and delete them. So there was one person that she played with for quite a while. And when they talked to her, she was like, you know what? I don't want to be rude. I've been playing mini games with this person. And they started to talk. And that was the wedding that I went to. Oh, yeah. He's also from the UK. So, the fact that I was at a wedding of my cousins where the meet cute happened over Words with Friends across the ocean is just crazy in and of itself. So I'm at the wedding. There's the girl there. And I have not been the best most confident when it comes to women throughout my life. I am timid. I feel like I'm going to say the wrong thing, or they're going to think I'm a creeper or something like that. So, as all of the cousins and family members are coming up to me going, hey, go talk to her, go dance with her. I'm like, all right, I'll wait for a slow song because I can't dance. And I was like, I'm not going to get out there and try and bust a move. At least with a slow dance, which thinking back is like, okay, so you want to go for the more intimate of dances to start. But the DJ never played a slow song. Never. And the fast songs that he was playing, they were not dancing songs at all. He was not a good DJ. He really wasn't. And so I'm waiting. Finally, I get out on the dance floor, and one of my cousins, she was, I think, like 5 at the time. She's dancing out there, and she looks at me, a little 5-year-old, says, "All right, let's see what you got." And I start laughing because I'm like, I don't have anything. I can't dance. I'm not good at dancing. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Or no, she said, because I was trying to dance, and she goes, "Is that all you got?" That's what she said. I mean, this was what, 6 years ago, so the memory sometimes. But literally, that's what she said. She said to me, "Is that all you got?" And my response was, yes. Yes, it is. But this girl I knew was helping out with the wedding, and this cousin was the niece of my cousin, basically. And so I know that she knows their family. So I use that as an in to try and strike up a conversation. I'm like, "Hey, I was over there talking to... I was just dancing, and Juliet looked up at me, and she goes, is that all you got?" And I was like, "Yeah." Which, thinking back on all these conversations, it's a miracle I even got, a second conversation with this woman. So we end up out on the dance floor, and this girl looks at me and goes, "All right, let's see what you got." And I'm like, I can't dance. I don't know what I'm doing. I look like a fool. I am making myself out to be a fool right in front of this girl. And this is embarrassing. And then it was time for the bride and groom to leave. So I'm talking to her like, "Oh, you live up here?" And she's like, "Yeah. And I met your cousin working at Starbucks. And so, we became friends through that." And I'm like, all right. So we go outside, see the bride and groom off, and I turn around, and that human being, she was going back into the building. And I'm like, I haven't had a chance to say anything like, "Hey, do you want to get together?" or anything like that. So, I did what any normal human being would do, and I followed her back into the building. But then she went upstairs, and I was like, okay, she's probably going to change or do something like that. I'm definitely not following her up there. So I went down to the reception hall, and I was saying goodbye to everybody I could think of, like, "Hey, catering, awesome food, guys. And, oh, good job, fake plant. You did a wonderful job standing there doing nothing." And then I hear from behind me, "Hey, your family's in the car. They're waiting for you. Get outside." And that's when my heart sunk. I was like, ugh. So I guess nothing's going to come of this. And I turn around, and she's walking in the room at that moment. And I looked at the person, and I was like, all right, just give me 1 second. So I go up towards her, and the groom's brother had already struck up a conversation with her. And so I'm thinking, great, he's British. I'm not. And he's already talking to her. But I ignored every instinct that I've ever had, where I would just turn and walk away and not even a second glance. And I walked up, and the British guy looks at me and goes, "I've got to go back to England tomorrow, but you should talk to her." And I'm like, "Actually, that's why I came over here." And I looked at her, I said, "Hey, would you want to go get coffee sometime?" And her response was, "Oh, 2 propositions at once." That's when old school Nico popped in. And I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It was, I just thought I'd ask, but have a great night, and it was nice to meet you." And she said, "Well, find me on Facebook." I was like, all right, okay. Still very cautious about being optimistic. And I waited a good 15 to 20 seconds before finding her on Facebook and adding her. So, I was off to a great start. I can't dance. I follow her back into a building. I friend her on Facebook 15 seconds after ending a conversation with her. So, all right. I'm doing good. So, I was moving into a house, and I was waiting for the internet to get there. And it was going to take about a week. And I was like, okay, I could go over to my parents' house and get their internet and talk to her on Facebook or whatever, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a week. I'm just going to let it ride. And I did it. I waited a whole week, and I messaged her. Hey, it was great to meet you at the wedding. It was really fun talking. It was, just general banter to start off the whole conversation. And then my brain said, this is going to be like every other time, where a girl says, yeah, let's hang out sometime, and then any time that you text them or message them, they never respond again. And that's where my brain went, and I was like, yeah, that's probably how it's going to be. And an hour later, she responded. I was like, wait, what? Is this real life? So we started talking over Facebook, talking, back and forth. I mean, just long conversations through Facebook Messenger. And eventually I said, hey, I would love to take you out sometime. And her response was, to do what? I was like, I don't know. We could go hiking or go to dinner and a movie or something like that. She's like, okay. Well, all right. So we set a time and a day, and about 2 days before I was going to go, because she lived 3 hours away from me. It was about a 3-hour drive. So about 2 days before I was going to go up and pick her up and go into Seattle, she lived about an hour from Seattle, and take her out on a date or whatever it was at that point. I was like, hey, maybe I should get your phone number, because if I get close and I don't know where you are and I get lost, then it might be a good idea to have that. So got her phone number. She was house sitting at the time, so I went and picked her up at the house she was house sitting at. We went out to an Italian restaurant, and I got the cioppino, which, if you don't know, I don't know if they do this everywhere, but at this place, it was a kayak-sized bowl filled with seafood. I love seafood. Seafood's amazing. And so I was like, yeah, I'll get seafood. Why not? So I get this giant yacht of seafood, and she's over there with her raviolis. And I'm just laughing over this whole, it was a huge meal. And, when we got to the restaurant, we had left early because I'm a person who likes to be on time. And we got to the restaurant about half an hour before our reservation. So we sat in the car and just watched videos on our phones and showing each other videos and stuff. So all this time I'm thinking, man, this girl thinks that I'm just some goober. We're gonna end tonight, and she's gonna be like, all right, well, that was fun, thanks. And that was gonna be it. So I take her back to the house where she's house sitting, and she was like, hey, you want to come in for a little bit? I was like, yeah, sure. And so we watched, I think, another movie that night. The first movie that we ever saw together was Prometheus. So, and come to find out, because she said that she liked horror movies and stuff, and I was like, oh, well, okay, what if we did this? Come to find out, she said it only because she didn't want to seem like a wuss, and I'm like, girl. But, so we, the movie ended, and I was like, hey, I'm up here another day, staying at my brother and sister-in-law's house. They live in Seattle. And I was like, would you want to do something tomorrow? Same response. Like what? Like, I don't know. I'll think about it. She goes, yeah, I've got some stuff I've got to do in the morning, but then after that, I'm free. All right. So I was like, I'll think about it and I'll let you know what my idea for what we could do tomorrow. So I go to my brother and sister-in-law's house, and in Tacoma, there is a car museum. And just talking with her, to kind of got the sense that she liked cars and classic cars and stuff like that. And my brain, being who I am, and not thinking that it's weird, I was like, hey, I should take my nephew to go with me. So I did. And I used him as a spy, because we're in the car, and he's a very inquisitive human being. Still is, to this day. And it's amazing. But he, at the time, so he's 11 now, and this was in 2012. So yeah, he was, 5 years old at the time? And he's like, what's her favorite color? How old is she? What does she like? And I'm like, hey, buddy, I don't know, but I will. You can ask her all those questions. You can ask them, and we'll find out. So I used him as a spy to get some information, and I'm not sad about that. Oh yeah, what's up, Exy? How are you doing tonight? I'm just telling the story of how I met my wife, and we've gotten to the second date now. So we go. She's obviously still house sitting, so we go pick her up. And we go to the car museum, and like middle schoolers, we end up holding hands while we're walking around the car museum. And then it came down to, do I take her back to the house where she's house sitting, or do we take my nephew back to my brother and sister-in-law's house, and then I take her back to where she's house sitting? And that's basically what happened. I was like, do you want to go drop him off first, and then we can go back to where you're house sitting? And she was like, yeah, sure. So on our second date ever, she met some of my family. And so we dropped him off, went back to the house. She asked me if I wanted to come in and hang out some more, and we sat on the couch and kind of snuggled up on the couch. And then the evening was over. And me being Nico Suave, as it were, I am standing at the door, and keep in mind, at this point, I'm 28 years old. Was this 2012 or 2? Yes. 29 years old. Holy cow. I can't count, guys. I was 29 years old. And so at this point in my life, I'm like, you know what? If I'm out here to date somebody, I'm out here to focus on them, and I want, I don't want to just go from person to person just trying to figure things out. If this person is really someone that I like and that I want to pursue, they have to know who I am, and I'm not going to play around with that just to, get further down the road. And so, obviously, I took my nephew on a second date ever with a girl. Which I didn't think anything weird was weird or anything, but thinking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that was a little weird. So we're at the door, and I just smooth as butter. I go, so can I assume that we're in a relationship now? Those are the exact words that came out of my mouth. Everybody. Exact words. And she laughed, rightfully so. And she said, yeah, I guess you could assume that. I was like, all right, cool. So, yep, Exy, yep. It's a true story. So I left and went back up to my brother and sister-in-law's house. I think I did. Yeah, I must have. But then that was at the end of June. And then the 4th of July came around, and she had to work. She's been a nurse since I met her, before I met her. And she had to work on the 4th of July, so she told me, just stay down with your family and stuff, because I have to work. And we get about halfway through the day, and she texts me and says, "Hey, I was put on standby," which means she could be called in if they need her, but she doesn't have to go into work. So I was like, "Hey, do you want me to come up there?" She goes, "No, let's wait until," I think it was like 5:30. At that point, if they don't call me in, then they're not going to need me the rest of the night. I look at my watch. I'm like, okay, 5:30. That's an hour away. So if I get on the road and I'm an hour into the drive and she lets me know that she has to go into work, then it's not a big deal. It's not super far. So I tell my family, I'm like, hey, I'm going up with this girl to hang out with her. She might have to go into work, but I'm going to bank on the option that she's not going to have to go into work. And I think I ate a cheeseburger because we were making burgers, and I put a cheeseburger together, and I think I ate that thing in 1 minute. Like literally, I shoved it down in my face, and I was on the road heading up. I got about an hour into the drive, and she's like, "All right, well, why don't you come on up? Because I got, they didn't call me in." So I was like, all right, cool. I'm leaving. So I get up there. She's house sitting for those people again, which is hilarious. She was doing a lot of house sitting when I first met her. Get to her house, and we decide that we're going to go see The Amazing Spider-Man. And so we go. We see The Amazing Spider-Man. I take her back to the house where she's house sitting. And for the second time in my entire life, remember, I'm 29 at this point. For the second time in my entire life, I kiss a girl. The only other time before that was about 3 or 4 years prior. And I kissed her goodnight, and then I drove back home. Now remember, this is about a 3-hour drive. 2.5, 3 hours, somewhere in there. I was not tired the entire trip home. Electricity was coursing through my body. So that was like the first official date that I would say, once we had said, yeah, we're together. I haven't had a girlfriend in 3 years. Oh man. Hey, when the right one comes along, like this whole story is insane, and how it happened and all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I didn't meet her until I was 29. And I started going up there, I think it was like 2 days a week, 3 days a week. And I would drive up, hang out with her until 1 or 2 in the morning, and drive home. And so I'd get home at like 4 or 5 in the morning and have to do, normal human stuff the next day. But I did not care. And eventually I started saying I had an aunt and uncle who lived like 10 minutes away from where she lived. And so I'd stay at their house. And then eventually, once it was like, okay, it was kind of part of the family, because it was, she lived with her parents. I was able to stay in one of their guest rooms whenever I was up there. So I didn't have to make those intense drives. So we get a month in to our relationship. A month exactly to the day. So it's August 4th, from July 4th to August 4th now. And we're sitting on the couch. And I look at her and I say, I want to marry you. 1 month in. And immediately my gut drops. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I just say that out loud? And her response was, okay, you just have to ask my dad. I was like, all right. And then I said, I love you. After I said I wanted to marry her, I said I loved her. So that might have been a little backwards, but she said it back. And so we were dating. I mean, like, that was with the intent of marriage at that point. And I hung out with her constantly and was up there all the time. And then her birthday was coming up, which it was actually at the beginning of this month. Her birthday is. And her birthday was coming up, and we had talked. She did the accelerated courses in high school, so she never had a prom. She never went to prom, and she loves masquerade balls. So I set up a masquerade ball prom for her at my parents' house down in Oregon. So set that all up, and I went up to her parents' house, and while she was working, and I put all this stuff in her room, like a promposal type of thing. And then I, once she was like, yes, I'll go to prom with you as full-grown adults, she came down, and her friend made her this metal mask. Is it bronze? I think bronze mask. It's so cool, and she made that for her for the prom. And my brother, whom, if you have ever watched while I play video games and stuff, it's Pumbaa the Hog Lord. That's not his real name. He was our chauffeur. He took us out and took pictures of us on our prom date, and then dropped us off at a restaurant, picked us up, and took us back to the house. And when we got to the house, the prom was in full swing, and eventually we were named the king and queen of prom, and all this stuff. And then I had my plan, which was I was going to tell her that I was really warm, and that wasn't a lie. I was sweating. It was so hot in that house. And also I was thinking about what I was about to do. So I was like, hey, do you want to go outside for just a couple minutes, get some fresh air and cool down a little bit? And in typical fashion of the woman that I love, she goes, no, I'm okay. I'm going to stay in here. So I was like, oh, please just go outside with me for just a couple minutes, and then we'll come back in. And she's like, oh, okay. So we go out back. Candles all over the place. Our song was playing, which is a Lumineers song. So I belong with you. You belong with me. You're my sweetheart. That's our song. And so that was playing on repeat. We had, photographers hiding in the bushes, which was my sister-in-law. And went out there and proposed to her. And she said yes. And so, what was that, November? So it was basically July, August, September, October, November. 4 months. 4 months into dating, I proposed, and she said yes. So, our engagement was the longest piece of this whole story. It was 9 months. We were engaged for 9 months, and we got married in August of 2013. So we just celebrated our 5th year of marriage this year, and it is as wonderful and amazing as it has as the first moment that I met her. I'm going to tell you guys a really weird part of this story. As if this stuff isn't crazy enough. All the, cousin meets a guy on Words with Friends. He lives across the pond. They get married. I happen to be in town to go to the wedding where I meet her, and then sets into motion everything. As if that's not crazy enough. I'll tell you this other piece as soon as I'm done with this. If I forget, I apologize. Please try to remind me in the chat to remember the last piece of this. So, 9 months we were engaged, and, looking at venues and stuff like that, we determined, hey, my parents have a big enough backyard. We can have the wedding in my parents' backyard. My dad can do the ceremony. He can officiate. So we've got those covered, and, we'll do little snack foods and stuff like that, not a full meal, and people can walk around. And my parents had a sport court, so there was a dance floor already there. We bought some wood to place onto the sport court, just so that it was, we didn't ruin the sport court or anything. But, we did all the planning, got it all ready. And 1 week before the wedding, I was heading to my house, and I was feeling horrible. My stomach was hurting. I was not feeling good. And my wife was in full plan mode. And so she wasn't, I got to the house, I'm like, I do not feel good. And she's like, okay, well, grab this stuff and come back over to your parents' house. Half an hour later, she calls me. And she says, well, where are you? I need you to come back over here. And I told her, I said, my stomach is killing me. It hurts so bad right now. I can't even drive. So 1 week before I got married, I had an appendectomy. This is our story. Our story is one of adventure and ridiculousness. We don't do anything normal in our family. We all, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong, or sideways, or whatever. So 1 week, Exy, 1 week to the day of getting married, I had my appendix removed, which I kept joking was the perfect excuse for not helping get the wedding all set up. But no, I felt horrible. I was like, this is ridiculous that now I have to lay on a couch while everybody else gets everything ready to go. So, we got married in 2013 in August in my parents' backyard with a bunch of people there. And that night we stayed in a hotel by the airport, and we went to St. Lucia for our honeymoon, which was amazing. We stayed at this little plantation called Fondue, and it was an all-inclusive, which I recommend. All-inclusive is magical because, I mean, we had rum punches and elegant dinners at this place and all this stuff, and we didn't have to pay extra for it, which was fantastic. And then we just made sure we tipped heavily when we were done, when we left. Made sure everybody was taken care of, but they had amazing beer and all this kind of stuff that you just, it was all included. So we, all right, yeah, I'll take one of those. Let's try it. Let's try that. And yeah, so that was the beginning of our relationship into our marriage. And now we're 5 years down the road. We have 3 children, Scarlett and Lincoln and Zelda. They're twins. Lincoln and Zelda are twins. And it just keeps getting better and better. And for me personally, I could not have met a better human being to go through this life with. Because I look back at the few people that I did date in my life, and I'm like, they would not have understood who I am. I would have had to change myself for them. But with Renee, with my wife, she knows me and she knows who I am, and I get to be myself, which is huge. That is a huge, huge thing. So, here's the weirdest piece of this. And obviously, I didn't tell Renee about this for a while into dating. She probably doesn't remember that I told her. For many years, I had a dream. They were always different settings, different people, but there was always this one girl in this dream. She had dark hair, and it was kind of, kinked, wavy type hair. And she was always focused on me in the dreams. Like, she wanted to be around me, with me. And so my dreams always felt wonderful. And then I'd wake up like, oh, I'm alone. Oh man. The first time that I saw my wife, she has dark hair, and her hair was in that kinked, wavy fashion for the wedding. So this girl that I had dreamt of over the course of probably 10 years, multiple times, same girl in the dream, was the girl that I met at my cousin's wedding that I was not supposed to be at. And here's the even weirder part. I was out to dinner one time before I met Renee. I was out to dinner with a friend, and she was talking about how she had a dream that I was with somebody, a girl with dark hair. I go, yeah, I was telling her about the dreams that I'd had. And she goes, and I go, and her hair was, and I go, it wasn't curly. She goes, but wavy. I go, yeah. She goes, yeah, I dreamt about you and her. That's weird. That's crazy that that's even real. And so, I mean, it was like one of those things, it was meant to be. And nothing was forced in our relationship. Like it wasn't, well, let's just stick it out. Let's just hang on and see what happens. We were both into each other from the first moment, and I mean, nothing has changed. I don't know, I don't know what I'd do without her. She is the most amazing human being I've ever met. And I mean, she agreed to let me try this streaming thing to see if I could make it work. I think I can. She believes in me more than I do, 90% of the time. But yeah, so hey, I made it about 45 minutes in with that story. Not too shabby. We might end it early unless people have questions or want to talk some more about anything. We might end it early tonight. And then give me until 7 p.m. to get my mind changed over. My brain has to change over into gaming mode because I've been in talking mode. I mean, I talk a lot while I'm gaming, but it's a different banter at that point. So, shout out to DJ Crayon, who suggested I tell the whole story of how I met my wife, and I even gave more details tonight than when I was telling him about it when I was playing with him. And yeah, so I think that's about it, guys. I made it. I pushed that story to about 45 minutes, and it's a story that I love to tell. I really do. Exy says, well, I met this girl a couple of months ago and developed a crush on her. I started having dreams of being in a relationship with her right away. I tried getting to know her every time I saw her, but she seemed so closed off. In the end, I come to find out she got back with her ex. Yep, I have had those situations in my life where I've been interested in a girl and, have become their confidant and the person that they want to hang around with, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I got back together with this person, and you're like, okay. But and the whole thing is with relationships is I can say, I can give sage advice and all this kind of stuff on things to do, but until you have experienced it yourself, it doesn't make sense. And it feels lonely. It feels like it's never going to happen. And feels bad, man. Yep. Yeah. Yep. But for me, looking back on the other women that I could have ended up with, if I had pushed it and if I had just tried to make it work, I would not be as happy as I am now. And I would not be in the place that I'm at now, where I'm deeply, madly in love with the woman that I married. And I knew there was something special about her because she was the first girl that I dated that I didn't get bored after a couple months, a month or two. And I know that sounds horrible, and it has nothing to do with the other person at all. The people that I have dated, are all wonderful people, and they are off doing wonderful things in their lives, and I adore them. They're great people. It just didn't fit with my personality. None of them. And I tried, but I would get bored every time. Like this, if this is how it's going to be, I don't think I can do it. And so I waited. I waited till I was 29 years old. And then, approaching 30, I was even going, I'm never going to find anybody. There's, for some reason, whatever vibe I give off is very unappealing to the opposite sex. And I'm just going to go through life without a companion. And I always wanted to get married. I always wanted to have somebody, and marriage isn't for everybody. It's not, that's the thing about when I talk about things on on this podcast, on Stuff and Things, it's all my opinion. It's all my experience. It's not everybody else's experience. So you have to take what I say with a grain of salt. And if something hits home, it hits home, and that's awesome. And I love that. But, everybody's experience is different, and it should be. It's a good thing that everybody has their own experiences and their own, way that things happen in their lives, which I guess are experiences. But, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just the thought that one of the very nice things about not finding Renee until I was 29 years old is I was able to figure out a lot of my own crap and figure out who I was to the point where I didn't have to deal with, we didn't have to deal with each other's early 20s or late teens drama of I don't know who I am, you don't know who you are, and all this stuff. We both had a pretty good idea of who we were as people independently, which is huge. Because as much as we are a unit, we are independent human beings. And so I think that was a huge blessing that we didn't. I knowing her and being married to her now, I would love to have known her for years and years and years. But I don't know if it would have ended the same way if I had met her when I was in my early 20s. Don't know. I get you. I'm only 21 and I can't be focusing too much on finding someone else. And that, like I said, everybody's journey is different. 21 is, it's young, man. That's a young age. That's not, not end of your 20s. But I looking back, I gave up hope many times. I was like, oh, no, I'm going to be alone. And then I never thought of anybody that I'd be a person, be like, yeah, I met my wife at a wedding. I never thought of, going to weddings, searching for the single women. It's never been something that I thought of doing. And I had no intention of meeting somebody at my cousin's wedding. No thought of it. I was like, I'm going to go to my cousin's wedding. And then, lo and behold, there she was. So, yeah, it's crazy. Life is crazy. It's wild how things happen. And, yeah, it's good. It's good. And now we have children who are hilarious. And we have a 3-year-old who can say stuff like Pachycephalosaurus. And not like most children who repeat words. And you're like, yeah, it kind of sounds like it. I'm talking, if you look on my Instagram, it's Old Man Nico 2018. I posted a video of her saying the names of dinosaurs. And it is astonishing to me how clear she can say these things. It blows my mind. And I've been listening to her do it for a year and a half. When she was 4 or 5 months old, I think, she mimicked. I would kind of toss her up a little bit, and then she would giggle, and she would say, and I'd go, "Do you want to do it again?" And she would go, again. And of course, people were like, "Oh, you're a new parent, and so you hear what you want to hear." Which, yeah, that happens. And I've done that definitely, where I'm like, it sounded like it, but I don't think it was. And so one time my mom and my sister were over at the house, and I was not throwing her up in the air, like, but, just kind of lifting her up. Oh, so she could see in the mirror. That's what it was. She could see herself in the mirror. And I go, "You want to do it again?" And she goes, again. And my mom and sister looked at me like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "I told you guys. I told you that she repeats." And so, she's been a very articulate child since she was little. And Lincoln is following suit. Zelda isn't as interested in talking right now. But you can tell she's thinking things through. She's like a crafty velociraptor, that one. But Lincoln, I taught him, he's 11 months old now. I taught him to say GG. I'm working on Ya Yeet with him. And he says his sister's name, Zelda. And he'll say buddy on occasion. And so, and he just gibberish all the time. It is the cutest thing ever. But that's off topic of what I was talking about. But hey, we've filled almost the whole hour. So, Exy, I would say, buddy, just, it's interesting, and like I said, it's very hard to see from the other side of it. And I didn't see it until I met Renee. That, this is how it's supposed to be, and when it clicks, it clicks. And it was when I stopped looking. When I stopped actively going, basically looking at women and going, she's attractive. Maybe I can strike up a conversation with her and hang out with her. When I stopped actively trying to do that was when I met her, Renee. And who knows? Who knows how you'll meet somebody someday and it will click. But it's crazy. Life is crazy. I know I've said that like 7 times. People are like, "Yeah, man." So yeah, that's how I met my wife. I'll be putting this up on YouTube as per usual, probably next week, because that's kind of how I do. Yeah, I can tell when I need to stop forcing a conversation. Yes, I've been in those situations where it gets real awkward. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, they don't want to talk to me anymore." So you have to extricate yourself as seamlessly as possible. Yeah, I've definitely had those situations, for sure. But, all right. I'm over here just messing around with stuff, because I fidget. And if I don't have something in my hands, you see my hands go like this and crazy and whatever. So, thank you for joining me for Stuff and Things this week. I hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed the topic. I always love talking about my wife. She's amazing. And so, I hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. I'm still figuring out this whole Stuff and Things process and what I want to do exactly with it and how I want it to look. Eventually I want to be able to build out an office where I have specifically for the talk show vodcasts that I'm doing, and then specifically for when I'm gaming and stuff like that, so that there's a different feel to it. Because right now you just get the same background, which I like my background. It's pretty cool. But to be able to kind of differentiate between, he's doing the talk show, now he's doing the gaming, that kind of stuff. And also, eventually I want to get kind of a conference room where I can set up cameras and microphones and stuff like that, and do tabletop games, like do like D&D and other games like that, where we can have people over and do that and record that, do that live stream. I have a lot of plans, a lot of big plans. Just gotta keep grinding away at this and hope someday that it all comes together. Just the hard work is what it takes. The long days and getting myself out there. So thank you again for joining me. Have a wonderful evening. I am going to take just a few minutes just to go get my brain switched over to game mode, and then I will be back. So probably about 5-10 minutes. I usually say 15 minutes, but it's usually like 5 or 10 minutes. I will be back. Thank you. This was episode 8 of Stuff and Things. I've done 8 of these already. I can't believe it. How in the world do I have so much to talk about? I probably don't. I probably just ramble 90% of the time. But whatever. I have fun. I enjoy it. And I hope you guys enjoy it too. Same to you, brother. Have a good one. Yeah, YouTube, Exy, thanks for joining me tonight. And I will see you in the future.